Friends, good evening, and thanks for joining us. Another edition of Live at Night Soccer Talk. By the way, happy Father's Day on this Sunday, already the 21st of June, if you can believe it, day number 11 of our World Cup coverage. We talk soccer, and we're talking, of course, the biggest tournament on the planet that's going on right now. We are literally hanging on here as we were watching the end of the New Zealand versus Egypt match. We'll talk about that a lot. So thanks to all of you that are joining us. We are live via Deportes Nation X, Deportes Nation Facebook, also Deportes Nation, the YouTube channel. So thanks to all you that have been following us. We know it's a Sunday. We know many of you have to get ready for el trabajo, work tomorrow, but we're here, and you can tell every day disheveled a little bit more. Before we bring in the one and only Victor Araiza, I usually like to introduce my little friend here to the left. Today, we have Tango España, the official match ball of the 1982 World Cup. Did you know that Spain was not even in the top four? Who won that World Cup? Italy. Second place at the time, West Germany. We'll call it Deutschland. Why not? Poland, and then France rounding out the top four. So a little history lesson and another look at the ball. And by the way, the early balls that were produced were really replicas of each other. It was very simple. We'll compare it to some of the latest versions that are a lot more colorful. And of course, the technology has changed. Things have definitely improved. So excited to be with you. I really am. We continue on this Father's Day, keeping up with everything related to the World Cup. A lot to talk about. Why don't we talk about some of the fun stuff, which is, who else is with me? Not just Alex Parra. We bring in the one and only, here he is, Victor Araiza. Victor, first of all, happy Sunday. I know every day blends into another. How are you this evening, sir? And welcome in once again. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to discuss another day full of World Cup events. And obviously we had some important results today as the pictures to the round of 32 is getting a little clearer by the day.
Yeah.
And certainly some shocking results. I'm sure we'll get into that.
So let's talk a little bit about today's matches. Why don't we start there, Victor? The Spanish national team coming back after a disappointing, if you will, for their standards, first match, finding a way to take care of Saudi Arabia. But when we speak of powerhouses, Belgium in many ways an upset, Iran picking up another tie, Uruguay, and we'll talk about Bielsa a little bit later on in the program. Cabo Verde surprising their second tie, and we just watched Egypt defeat New Zealand, who for a moment there thought maybe they might pick up some points. But what stands out to you here before we get into the details in general terms about today's matches?
Yeah, certainly Uruguay. Whatever you may think of this historic Cabo Verde run, which is obviously remarkable, and now they're heading to Houston, and we'll get to see them here against Saudi Arabia. But obviously that match between Spain and Uruguay, the stakes are much higher now, certainly for Uruguay. I think one of the disappointments of the tournament, no doubt about it. We thought they might be able to do something special, certainly under Bielsa. Luis Suarez trying to make a late attempt into getting into the World Cup squad after retiring. But here they are, and we'll see again what this turns into. We also talked about the cushion that is these third place spots. So even in what any other edition of the tournament would have been a drastic disappointment, there's a lifeline for the Uruguays, and certainly there's a lifeline for nations like Cabo Verde, who could go on to be play spoilers for depending on who they get drawn against in the later round, but certainly already making history and writing on that history. And then Spain, we talked about it also. They needed to recoup, and they did. Egypt, I'm sure we'll get into, is another nation that needed to showcase its strength, and they did. Belgium, another disappointment when we eventually get into that one. So, I think that the lack of storylines was never going to be there, certainly with a 48-team tournament. But again, it gets a little clearer, and it's going to, once everything's solidified, provide some maybe juicy matchups even in the first round.
Victor, when you look at Group G, literally at the minutes after they've picked up the 3-1 victory over New Zealand, I did not have Egypt leading the group going into Game 3 of group stage. So that to me is a surprise. Belgium just can't seem to get going. Today we saw Spain kind of back on top in their normal way, but yeah, Cabo Verde to me, Cape Verde. It's exciting to see the possibilities of this team that are hanging in there. Two games, 2 ties, surprising the world, surprising big teams like Uruguay. You have mentioned it though, Victor. In certain groups, that third place. What gets you in as a third place, Victor? 3 points at the minimum. I think right at
Yeah,
this
I
point.
think so.
Yeah.
I think at the minimum, I think if you manage to get 4 points and you're a third place team, you're probably through to the next round, almost for sure. So,
Yeah.
for example, like a Japan who's second in Group F, right? If they were to lose to Sweden, they're probably through, depending, just on the way the 4 place teams end up. So. They still, we still got to see the matches get played, but I think I would say 4 points is probably a certainty, and I think you probably at the minimum need 3.
So friends, if you are starting that calculation, this is where it starts getting really fun. Let's say we get past the next couple of days, and we'll talk about Argentina tomorrow in Dallas versus Austria. And is it Austria? Yes, it's Austria, right? Someone's going to correct me here. Too many A's in that group: Argentina, Australia, and Algeria. So I get a little bit confused. But you can start now seeing patterns, groups, teams that are in. We know for sure right now Mexico are in, United States is in, Deutschland are in. Right, the only 3 solidified to be in to the round of 32. But you start, friends, doing the math, start thinking about where groups go, the matchups that could potentially come here, Victor. A group of 32, group of 16. Remember, there's a total of 7 matches being held at Houston Stadium. So I love the math. I love playing with the possibilities. Us soccer nerds, I guess, I'll call myself that. What has to happen? And then, Victor, yesterday you were talking about the tie breaks, head-to-head versus goal differential, et cetera, et cetera. It may be tight in some of these situations, right? About who gets in as a third place, and then where they would go. So there's still many variables.
Where it gets complicated is that I think head-to-head is actually the first tiebreaker now. So it's not even goal difference. Goal difference comes into play if you tie with the team you're directly competing against. But it does put more importance on that direct encounter, which is why Mexico and the U.S., for example, have already solidified the top of the group, even though the
you could have a tie
goal
potentially
difference
on
or what
points.
have you would have but in this case, since Mexico's already they've already beaten South Korea, which is the only team in that group that could have matched them on points. So that's why Mexico's already top of the group. Same thing with the USA. Australia and Paraguay can finish on 6, but the USA has beaten both of them already, so that's why they're top of the group. And again, the only team so far eliminated Haiti and Turkey. But while we don't have some of these confirmed, I think you can kind of start penciling in the Netherlands, like I said, maybe Japan, Spain. You can, England and France. You can Argentina. Well, especially after tomorrow, you can start penciling some of these in. But again, they got to play them first, and they got to make them official.
Victor, and we'll talk about the strategy of going into Game 3 if you've already qualified. Obviously, if you haven't, you've got to give it all you've got. If you recall some World Cups, literally, when 2 teams were already in, they would literally play the last match as simplistic as possible to literally know that, you know what, we're going to end up in a draw. If we keep this draw, we're all in. It was very intentional what some clubs did, and that's part of a lot of national teams have their statistician that's working literally to know, look, we need 1 goal, we need 2 goals, we cannot concede anymore. If we end up with a tie, this is what happens. So the math becomes important. As we know, Victor, also game number 3 in the groups will be played simultaneously, those 2 games. So that also makes it interesting. the reason for that, and I was asked about this a few days ago, was so that you didn't have, so you had more drama, number one, and maybe less manipulation going into that final
Right.
match. That's the way I presented it, Victor.
No, absolutely. You can't basically strike a deal with another team in your group to essentially both of you go through, and certainly it adds more drama and simultaneous watching for a lot of us. But again, everybody wants to win and be in the next round, and certainly um, draw the best path to a championship, which is why
Exactly. Yeah.
we mentioned for the host countries, and Canada's in the run to win their group as well. Advancing as the first place gives you an easier chance to a more advantageous, right? We talked about the U.S. wouldn't have to leave the West Coast until maybe what is it, the semifinal, I believe. Mexico wouldn't have to leave. The border in Mexico City, frankly, they only went off to Guadalajara, and that's still home field. But basically, they would be in Mexico City, uh, until the quarterfinals, which is when they would have to go to the United States. So, which in itself it's home field. But I'm talking about the altitude of Mexico City, the intrigue, the mystic, Estadio Azteca. They'd have that advantage, at least on paper, through the next two knockout games. And like you said, they got to start thinking about what they're going to do in these first couple of games. The U.S. will surely, I would imagine, rest their star, Christian Pulisic, to try to have him healthy. Chris Richards is another player, I think, that they could probably see some rest, some of the yellow card guys. And for Mexico, maybe not so advantageous while, you get to tinker and experiment with a couple of players. It might have a distraction because there's talks about, is Memo Ochoa going to get a starting goal? And is that going to throw a wrench in everything? So it may not even be just as easy as you think. As getting some rest. It could complicate things. At least that's what it's sounding like in Mexico.
We will see then what happens. Let's talk a little bit about today's first match of the day, played in Atlanta. The early game, Spain, as we've mentioned, having some difficulties relative to their expectation in game number one, but they were able to soundly defeat Saudi Arabia. I saw a much different urgency and less frustration, clearly. Finding the back of the net always helps. But Victor, your take on Spain kind of getting back on track.
Yeah, well, again, it's hard to judge a team by the opening match because, as we mentioned, you can have like in Argentina in the 2022 edition in Qatar, where they're not strong out of the gate, they lose, and they end up winning the whole thing. That's why it's let's wait to the second match and see how they respond. Spain did. Yamal gets his first goal in the World Cup, becomes one of the youngest players to score, and the counterpoint to that is in the same group, Uruguay. Who's still struggling after the second match, who drew again, and in both of these cases, Spain played in Atlanta both of its matches. Uruguay playing in Miami for both of its matches, and it's two different tales of the tape.
And we've got to talk about, maybe Saudi Arabia didn't bring it, but Cabo Verde now, it's two ties in their debut World Cup. In their debut in this big stage of the World Cup, this is a team that's surprising me. The maturity, Victor, if you will, the not only the belief tactically, it's making sense. I see two things honestly: an Uruguay that's been maybe overrated now coming into this World Cup thus far, and a Cabo Verde that's been underestimated. So you combine both of those things and a little bit of the magic potion of luck. And this is a result that to many is shocking because I didn't expect this when we went into this World Cup. But what a nice surprise! What a story about Cape Verde, Cabo Verde, depending on how you want to look at it. This is, as you mentioned earlier, what makes this World Cups in general even more intriguing.
Well, and particularly this version that's expanded to 48 teams. But again, gone are the days where these guys are guys just playing for the love of the sport. I mean, these are some of these guys are professionals, right? Maybe not in the top teams in Europe, but still more professional than what people think. because they immediately look at the size of the country. They immediately think it's and granted, maybe Cabo Verde doesn't have a top pro league, but a lot of these players aren't coming from that environment anyways. And the other part of it is you don't have to risk as much because three teams could potentially go through from a group, and in most groups it'll be that way. You don't have to go for it necessarily, right? You can risk a little more. Now, granted, Cabo Verde has gone for it, especially in this game. They scored off an amazing a free kick goal,
Oh,
right, to take the lead.
tremendous.
They ended up taking a point from this one. But what I'm saying is they can sort of afford to have two draws to start the group, and still kind of maybe playing with house money. But like we mentioned, 3 points might be enough. If they get another draw in this last game, that might be enough to send them to the next round.
So let's look.
Instead of having to just win
Yeah,
the group or be one of the top two in the group.
Forgive me for interrupting, Victor. So let's look at this. When Cabo Verde came into the tournament, to me, they were last place, and there's no way they're touching Spain and Uruguay. That's two ties already. I mean, against those teams, you cannot take that away from Cape Verde. Period. Number one.
No, absolutely.
And on paper, then Cabo Verde literally could go in, Victor, as a second place in this group. Uruguay now has to play for it all. A tie may not even be good enough, maybe just enough. That would not sit well with Spain. So these two matches, as you mentioned, one coming to Houston, the Saudi Arabia Cape Verde match, very intriguing. That game would be then on when, Victor? That is on Friday the 26th, if I'm not mistaken.
Friday night.
Yeah. Friday night lights here in Texas. That could be a very intriguing matchup. But even if Cabo Verde don't fulfill now with picking up a few more points with a tie or a win, it's a surprise that they picked up points against Spain and Uruguay, isn't it?
It is. It is. And again, and they may even finish second depending on how the things go in these matches. Saudi Arabia still has a chance to advance. Even though they lost today by big margin of defeat, 4 goals.
Yeah.
But yeah, this group is still kind of wide open, with Spain obviously leading the charge until the last day. Uruguay, I mean, they could erase everything they've up to this point,
Beating España,
win
yeah.
against Spain,
Yeah.
and go through as the top of the group. So plenty of history still to be made here. And again, imagine if an Uruguay goes through as third place. I don't think any of the first place teams are going to want that either, even if Uruguay is not living up to their potential.
Exactly. So that's one of the intriguing parts of what happens next. Let's jump quickly to the match that just finished right before we went on air. Egypt and Salah finally getting a goal. 3-1 was the final. Although you can tell from the score line, New Zealand at one point was up 1-0. This is an Egypt team that seems to be warming up a little bit, Victor. Does this surprise you? New Zealand, not highly ranked per se, if you will, but anything can happen. And today in Vancouver, Egypt with a 3-1 victory and 3 points.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest one is Egypt has an opportunity here, and they probably will win the group. Again, that draw with Belgium, and today they were the ones that responded. Belgium didn't. New Zealand still has a chance, even though they obviously, not the result they wanted against Egypt, and certainly not in the way they started. But yeah, another group that's kind of throwing in some surprises. Iran. Let's see what they end up doing. Because I think maybe they've been written off a little bit here with these results, but we see them right there. They're sitting in second place heading into the last match day.
Yeah, certainly surprising. We talked about Iran and Belgium, maybe not the most attractive match. Belgium, who traditionally have found a way to maybe rise above. Not to me, a Uruguayish performance thus far in the first 2 games, Victor, in my estimation.
And maybe not, I think, again, maybe the disappointment here is not as big as Uruguay, just because it's not, again, I think people are seeing how small of a nation geographically Cape Verde is, and against, not one, but 2 of the giants of the sport, two World Cup championship teams all time. I mean, in the history, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
Uruguay hasn't won one in a while. Spain, obviously, distant from that 2010 conquest, but teams that have lifted the World Cup, nations that have lifted the World Cup, I should say. And I think that's what adds more pedigree or more of an upset factor, right? Whereas over here, maybe and Belgium has also kind of been disappointing in some of these World Cups where we've thought they would do more. Even the Euros, we thought they would do more with some of these golden generations. But again, just like the other teams, I mean, they're still in it up until the last game, and all you need to do is get hot at the right time.
And that time is coming though, because we're kind of wrapping up the second game for most groups. Victor, let's talk a little bit about, in general terms, some of the criticism in a way that's come because of the changes. There's always change. The VAR was a change that's now been adopted, accepted, and embraced in many ways. It helps us. Technology has helped us deal with it. Stoppage time continues to be an issue. In this World Cup, Victor, hydration breaks, to me, have changed the game. What we were talking about Uruguay, and we've been talking about their performance thus far. Let's first talk about their coach, Marcelo Bielsa, who is known for, number one, keeping his head down. When you listen to him and pay attention, he has a lot of wise words. He doesn't mix words. I think he's old school, very traditional. He may be off-putting. And I don't mean pudding that you eat, but he may be in a way off-putting to the media because he doesn't play the game. He plays it just enough because he has to. He's a very savvy individual. But Victor, I wanted us to focus on a quote of his, and I'll bring it in now. Then this is a translation from a press conference prior to the Cape Verde game. And this is relative to the game itself. You can read it, friends, but let me kind of paraphrase it quickly. When it was divided into four, talking now about basically the 4 periods that are played, no thought was given to the effect it might have on what made soccer a sport that captivates people, but rather to another type of repercussions that I neither discuss nor analyze. Before this decision, he goes on, soccer had one characteristic. Now it has another. People fall in love with the game because of its characteristics. And I think in many ways it's a criticism, Victor, about the change and evolution of the sport. But is he right in saying, look, this is different. This has changed. We are now playing 4 quarters. It's not 2 halves anymore. And it used to be a running clock of 90. That's what separated soccer from maybe other sports. There were no timeouts. Now we know, and good or bad, we can judge that later. It has changed. It's clear that we're now playing 4 quarters. It's changed. So Victor, your thoughts on the hydration breaks, on what that means, the reason behind it, and is Bielsa criticizing without criticizing, certainly making observations that I think are true?
Yeah, no, Bielsa's great. I like his honesty. He fights for the purity of the sport, I think. Maybe the only knock against him is he probably doesn't have the titles to back up, because it's such a results-based business. Not that he needs them.
Yeah.
But I think certainly for a lot of people, that's probably the only thing they care about. And that's one thing that I would think probably works against Bielsa. But again, speaks his mind. He has a point in some of these things. And he's not quiet about it. Like you say, he's a no nonsense kind of guy when it comes to this stuff. It might be uncomfortable for some because I think we're so used to now, we've grown to accept it, right? It's hydration breaks, but I mean, even though it's really a commercial, we've now accepted it that it's the new rule because it's, and not everybody has. There's fans booing inside these stadiums every time the hydration break happens. Obviously, Fox at first was going to commercial breaks. Now they're kind of, after, they've been called out by Telemundo and Andres Cantor, which another refreshing, commentator, I think, because seems like he's like the gloves are off a little bit with Andres Cantor. I feel like more so than other years in fighting back against some of this, right? The celebrity appearances on during the games,
Sure.
obviously the hydration breaks when you don't necessarily need them in a stadium like Houston, where it's covered, it's air conditioned. Even if the weather in Houston is hot, it's not inside the stadium. It's not inside Dallas Stadium. It's not in some of these other like Atlanta that's also covered. So it's merely an excuse for like you said, 4 quarters, which is absurd. Um, especially when in America it might be, or at least soccer's always had that knock of being the sissy sport. When in reality, they're the sport that never took any breaks. Right? It's not like the NBA where you run back and forth and we got a
Call a
timeout, and
timeout,
you come
20-second
back
timeout. Yep.
and you gotta and then it's timeout again when you just came back from commercial break. Or the NFL where you have all these commercial breaks and the game ends up lasting 3 hours, even though it's supposed to be an hour of on the clock. So yeah,
So,
that's where we are.
Victor, I call it an evolution. And look, you mentioned the NBA, right? The evolution of what traveling was 20 years ago and 40 years ago is not traveling now. The game has evolved because of what it is. It's entertainment. It's a product that has to be sold, and you want a wider, bigger audience.
Well, if you want to call that evolution, I think
it's not necessarily.
You could say it's been compromised. I mean,
it's
because again,
changed.
that it's absurd. It's absurd that you can flop in the NBA to the degree that some players do it. It happens in soccer too, so it's not just exclusive to the NBA.
Sure.
I think it's made it unwatchable. I think the fact that you can essentially travel now with the ball, it's sort of, it kind of pulls the wool over your eyes that it's not as competitive as it used to be.
Victor, so you're headed in the direction where I'm going. What is next? So now we have 4 quarters done. There was no vote in it per se. They didn't go out to the people and say, "Is this what you want?" Are we going to have bigger goals? Are we going to have a 2-point shot where if you hit it from a certain distance, it counts? I think these are innovations. I'll use that word. More changes that are coming. And look, I think partly it's because our culture has changed, Victor. The younger people who play a lot of video games want to have these things happening. It's evolving. It's changing. Maybe Bielsa and some of us old guys lament that, but you know what? We're not part of the future. FIFA's got to think about what's going to be happening in the next 10 World Cups. That's 40 years.
Yeah, but how far do you go before you call it a different sport entirely?
Great
right?
question.
I think that's the question.
Yeah.
At some point, we used to have 3 substitutions in regular time, if you remember that.
I do.
And that wasn't too long ago. And now we're up to 5, and 6 if you go into extra time. So, I mean, again, I think it's one of these where you need people like Bielsa to sort of fight back, right? Because I think if you don't, that's kind of where it is. Where, we're going to go to 5 substitutions because of COVID or what have you. But we're going to change it back later once everything goes back to normal. And then it never changes back.
Yep.
Or, we're going to pause promotion and relegation in Liga MX, for such and such. But we're going to change it back once everything's, and it's never changed back.
Never happened.
And because it's all about money. And again, at what point do you compromise the sport and you change it into something else entirely, into just pure entertainment? I think you have to have the balance. And when you don't, that's where you lose fans. That's where you lose faith from people. And that's where, I think soccer has thrived through and through in some of these things. And again, I think the magic of the World Cup, we've talked about it. There was a lot of doubts heading into this one because of the amount of money for the tickets, the rule changes that we're talking about. But ultimately, I think it's prevailed. We've seen it prevail because people love the sport so much. They're willing to pay to be there, and it grasps so many people across the world that the demand is so high, even when the supply is increased. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question. I mean, at what point is it too much, right? In Europe, fans protested this Super League, right? That was basically going to dissolve the Champions League. Um,
And it
so I
didn't
think at
happen.
some
Yeah.
points you see fans fighting back. Like you said, I think we hear fans booing during the hydration breaks. Uh, Fox has changed it to where at first they were going straight to commercial break, and now they're doing picture-in-picture commercials like Telemundo. And so I think the people still can fight back, have a say in it if they choose to. But
You know,
yeah, I mean,
Victor,
like you said, we can call it evolution, but it's the way the sport is heading more and more because there is an economic power behind it.
the issue would be how far you push it until it's no longer what it was, and that starts working in the opposite direction, counterproductive to what you want, which is growth and a larger reach. And it's just the opposite that people say, no, I don't want this. The NBA and the traveling, I think, is a really good example of something that somehow hasn't faced or affected much the
And the
product.
addition of playoff spots.
Correct.
This thing with what is it? The NBA Cup, whatever. I mean, is that a success? The NFL's has gone more global, and where people where fans have complained is where you take away a home game so they can play in another country. Yeah, I mean, it's happening across every sport, but certainly,
If they can sell it, Victor, they're going to keep doing it.
I don't know what the answer is.
Well, if they can sell it, they're going to keep doing it. So if tomorrow someone comes in and says, look, I'll give you $1 billion to make the goal bigger and make sure you put my sign on it, someone will do it. Whether it's a league, whether it's a team, whether it's a federation, they will look at that. So it is about selling. So, friends, what are your thoughts? Give us your thoughts on whether or not now playing 4 quarters in the World Cup, and it kind of snuck up on a lot of us. It's suddenly, okay, I get the hydration. I get the importance of taking care of the athletes. Certainly in Houston, I don't even blink because when we watch games at Shell Energy, it is necessary. So it's become very normal and regular, certainly in MLS and NWSL action at Shell Energy. But when you start looking at it rationally, thinking about playing in the fall in Toronto, in Vancouver, I don't think it's needed, and that snuck up on us. And now the format has changed. And that's one of the things.
Well, is there going to be any heating breaks when you play in cold weather? I mean, again, at what point do you say,
or an oxygen break in Mexico
in
City,
high altitude?
Yeah. You go to Bolivia, exactly. You go to La Paz. Where's my oxygen break? Do the visiting teams get an oxygen break? And we go ahead and cut to the Coca-Cola commercial. By the way, we love Coca-Cola, but because we would sell that here too, wouldn't we? I think that's the conversation, Victor, that needs to be had. Let me hit you with another one here, Victor. When we're talking about there's so many storylines that are going on. Another storyline, at least locally in Houston, Victor, has been the picture that came out, and I want to make sure I'm getting my information correct here. But this is a photo that was posted on social media. I believe it was a reporter from Fox 26 locally that was one of the first ones to come out with this story. This is Greg Grugan, who posted this about Judge Lina Hidalgo. This is during Commissioner's Court, and she's working on her phone or looking at her phone. She's got kind of maybe I don't know the moment this was taken, but at least from what we can see in this photo, it appears she's got a map of the World Cup stadiums, and I don't have that good of an eyesight to see which stadium it is. So it appears she's quote unquote multitasking, and that she's looking at maybe what are the pricing for World Cup tickets. Let's start with this, Victor. And there was also a question about whether or not who took this picture, whether or not it should have been leaked or not leaked. Public officials, I think, are they fair game, Victor, on these kind of things? What they do in their lunch break? I don't know if this was a heated discussion about an important policy that would affect our county. But how many of us are multitasking? maybe in a meeting, and we're also searching or looking for something that maybe isn't related. And by the way, I think this would be related, not defending, but related to her job, related maybe to her being asked about ticket prices, and she's maybe looking into it. Maybe it's for personal reasons that she wants to procure tickets. Judge Lina Hidalgo, the leader of Harris County, who is very well involved, Victor, in the World Cup coming to Houston, coming to Harris County, is it fair game for the criticism of what she is doing? Something that to me happens every day in most of our professional lives. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but that's the scrutiny you're in when you're in a position like that, and certainly, we probably don't have enough time to get into all the stuff that's happened here in town with Judge Hidalgo. But my first question is, why is she looking for tickets? I mean, doesn't she automatically get in through the Houston Harris County Sports Authority as the county judge? Everybody else seems to be there. Mayor Whitmire is at the games.
Yeah.
Chris Canetti's at the games, and he's giving tickets away. Obviously, everybody that's I believe it's on the board. I mean, I've seen a few of them down there, through pictures, and so I mean, I just thought, because the stadiums are county property, they have their own suite. They get tickets in. So
but Victor, but let's
does she have to find her own way in?
Well,
Yeah.
but let's be honest, or at least let me give you my perspective. Are they there entertaining others? Are they there working? Meaning, county officials who put this together are seeing the product, are seeing all that work coming together. It's work, isn't it? Yes. Is it a coveted ticket? Absolutely. Is it a very expensive ticket in a suite? Absolutely.
Well, my point is that she should already have an entrance just by her position alone. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm just saying, I think I just assume by default it came with it. So why isn't she there as part of the county? Now, if it's during commissioner's court, no, I don't agree with it, because I mean, I don't think it's the time to be doing it. If it's during, again, unless the topic at hand is discussing, assessing something related to this. But then again, I mean, this commissioner's court thing, she's had issues where she's left early. Other judges or other, I guess I should say, commissioners have also left early. So I mean, we can get into who, what you're supposed to do when you're serving the public. But obviously, yeah, I mean, if she kind of got caught in this, and I mean, that's a scrutiny you're gonna fall under. But she's also on the way out, so maybe she doesn't really care. And she was part of the march yesterday, by the way. So that's so she's taking part in some of these things, as is the mayor. But again, my biggest question is, where's the unity we supposedly talk about in this city because of the World Cup, especially with the World Cup committee that was talked about, and why isn't she getting, right or wrong, the ticket that she should have as a county judge in that suite of the Harris County Houston Sports Authority?
Look, public officials are going to be scrutinized. I imagine, Victor, look, in Houston so far, the games have gone so well. The organization, in spite of the heat and the storms and who we are in Houston, things have gone so well that it's a success. So there's, from my perspective, there are things that will be criticized, like always. But what crosses the line of, hey, I just have a different opinion, versus there's something institutionally wrong with the way we're doing things. I guess the final numbers still have to come in on everything, on what the economic impact was to our city and our county, on what the total costs were, on whether or not there were any incidents, and God forbid that happens. We're doing so great, and then you kind of take the full package, and then give credit where credit is due, Victor. My point is, if there were issues or things that come up, someone's responsible. But if it overall it's a success, then credit needs to be given to those that helped organize it and put it together. Is that not fair?
Yeah. Again, credit due when it's merited. But again, we don't necessarily have the insight to a lot of the stuff. We only get told the good news, and I go back to it. FIFA has a lot of say in putting forth the conditions to be a World Cup host cities. Otherwise, you don't get the games. So while you're right, I mean, I guess the credit due, when it should, when it should be there. But you get credit for doing what you're supposed to do when those are the conditions set by FIFA. And again, FIFA by no means is the ethical standard
We have to be
in
honest.
government.
Yeah.
But again, they there's certain rules they need you to follow when putting in when being a World Cup host city. Some of those cities didn't want to do it. Chicago, right?
Good example. Yep.
So that's why to me it's a hard sell sometimes to say they're doing such a great job, because again a lot of this is a must from FIFA. Otherwise, you don't get the games, and people can debate whether we're reaping the rewards or not. Um, I still think there's a big benefit of being a World Cup host city. I'm glad we have the World Cup. I'm not going to be as bitter as some of the people that don't want any tourists in town or any But there's always going to be people that don't agree with you on everything. But yeah, I say, listen, there's going to be plenty of people also complaining about, was the wealth shared? Are enough businesses getting help around town? Is everybody getting in on this? And I think that all that stuff will come out, like you said, once the numbers start being reported or being pushed out after the World Cup is over.
I think the honeymoon period is still going on in many ways, Victor, from the media, from fans in general, whether it be local fans or certainly from fans that have come in as tourists in our city, in our county for a couple of days or maybe a week or two. So we will also be following some of these storylines. But it was interesting, the diverse response to the photo of Judge Lina Hidalgo, apparently at Commissioner's Court, apparently looking into the pricing of tickets. And again, yes, being a public official, I can just imagine the public scrutiny of everything you do. Maybe that's a topic for another day about whether or not that should or shouldn't happen. Victor, let's jump forward a little bit to tomorrow. Tomorrow, by the way, we'll have Katie Omaña, who's already in Dallas, in the Dallas area, I should say, getting ready for the Argentina versus Austria match. Clearly, Messi after that hat trick in game number 1. We're all waiting to see more magic. But what stands out to you about tomorrow's 4 matches, Victor?
Well, obviously that one, Argentina, Austria, here in Texas, and the potential of history being made, right, with Messi getting the all-time record for World Cup goals. I think that's kind of what we're looking at. Obviously France is going to get some eyeballs because they're one of the favorites, probably the favorite in many people's eyes. What's Mbappe going to follow up with? How's France going to perform? Norway, I think, has been another one of these nations whose fans have taken the headlines or at least the clicks on social media, the likes, the reposts, because of the way their fans have done. The Viking rowing, right? Added some more color to this World Cup. And obviously this is going to be, or should be, a good game between them and Senegal, who, again, have to respond after that defeat against France. Jordan and Algeria might not get a lot of looks, but again, in a format where third place teams get to go through and where Argentina's probably winning by default, that could be an important game in that group just for their own hopes for those two nations.
Absolutely. And friends, as we start wrapping up today's coverage, you get an overview here of after day 11th here on a Sunday. What is it? Again, I want to make sure I get all my dates right. The 21st of June. We're getting closer to the end of the second games in the group stage. Then, of course, we get into the drama, if you will, of the third game and what it means and how they're played simultaneously and the math of all of this. Victor, here in Houston, also, we're getting ready for one more game, which is going to be CR7 on Tuesday, Portugal taking on Uzbekistan. And you're seeing how in that group, it's still a lot to be decided. So Group Special K, I like to call it, but Congo, the DR Congo, after that tie, a very interesting situation. Actually, we need to update that group because I think that's incorrect, right? Colombia is actually leading that group.
Yeah, Colombia has 3
Yeah,
points.
yeah.
But that adds a good, you know, again, that adds a different storyline because for one, I think if Portugal ends up advancing as the second, and they still got to face each other, by the way, so that's going to be a great matchup. I think it's probably the most expensive game of the group stage. Um, Portugal, Colombia, and Miami, and obviously I think it's going to be the group decider. If Portugal goes through a second place, um, that puts them in the other side of the bracket of, you know, depending on how things end up. But you assume Argentina's going to be first in their group. Portugal would be on the other side of the bracket if there's second place, which would allow us a potential Messi Ronaldo final. So
Wow.
we'll see how that group
Wow.
happens, and if it doesn't turn out that way, if Portugal advances as the first place, I think they go on the same side of the bracket as Argentina, and I think they would potentially face off if they both advance. Somewhere midway through the knockout stage, I believe it's round of 16. If but somewhere out there, whichever game's in Kansas City. So I mean, I think that's one we got to circle just because, again, if it's the last time for both of these legends, that's certainly going to be and break a whole bunch of records as far as resale, as far as viewership.
As far as everything, as
So
far as
we'll see how that ends up.
the
Yeah.
marketing side of it all. Well, friends, we've got to go, and we'll leave you again with tomorrow's matches. We've got that one, I believe, 100% correct. So it's important to be looking forward to it. Victor, how does your week looking? I know you've been to Mexico. Obviously, you're covering games here in Houston. There's movement. And you said this, and I talk to you almost every day about this. Enjoy it now, because pretty soon we won't have these days of 4 games in a row. It'll be less and less matches. Then we get into the group stage, or the group the round of 32, the round of 16, and little by little, as we make our way into July, there'll be less of this and less intrigue, and yes, maybe more excitement potentially. Although there's plenty of excitement now, but as we close out another week, as we get ready for a start of tomorrow's matches on a Monday, what else is on your mind relative to the World Cup?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make a run to that Argentina-Austria game. Like I said, I think there's history on the line there. I think I might have a change of plans. I was planning on heading down to Mexico for that Uruguay-Spain game, but now that Cabo Verde, you know, I don't know, and plus, you know, maybe getting all the games here in Houston, I think I'm leaning to maybe staying for that Cabo Verde Saudi Arabia game just to see history as well with Cabo Verde and their story, and potentially getting that victory here in Houston, which would be historic for them. So we'll see what the week brings. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, exactly. So, friends, we thank all of you certainly that are staying up with us tonight. Live soccer talk here on the Deportes Nation, Soccer Texas. It's great that you take the time to follow us. We certainly want to hear from you as well. Help us out with your comments, your questions. Find us on social media. If you want to be critical of Victor, go ahead. I have no problem with that. But be nice and kind to me, right? I don't want anybody taking pictures of me, Victor, as I'm online shopping for the things I shop for. So
yeah,
I get it's a tough life sometimes, but well, we've got to go, friends. But before we do, again, thanks to all of you that have joined us, that have taken the time to be with us. We appreciate it. More coverage to come, more drama to come, more intrigue to come, and certainly more World Cup coverage to come. So, Victor, thank you. Like always, you're great. Try to get a little rest because you've been everywhere. Looking forward to Argentina tomorrow versus Austria. France also playing. Norway playing. Jordan and Algeria also playing tomorrow. So still a lot of games rather that we need to follow. So on behalf of our production team, who still need to work on those graphics, on behalf of Victor and I'm Alex Parra, thanks to all of you rather, for taking the time to be with us. Please keep following us. Have a great evening. Until tomorrow. Good night.